that in a moment. And then on my day job, my real job, the job that actually pays me, I lead Unity's government and aerospace business for all of North America. I live in Orlando, so not too far away. For many of you that don't know, Orlando is the world's the hub of modeling and simulation for the whole world. $6 billion a year gets spent by the U.S. Department of Defense alone out of Orlando. So a lot of the innovations, the fact that we've got the Magic Leap devices, the HoloLens devices, a lot of the simulation is because of that community. A lot of in the early days, the DoD were the ones that were funding a lot of this innovation. Now it's kind of the other way around, right? So anyway, how about that graphic, huh? Big round of applause for the University of Miami graphics team. That was pretty cool. That was eye-catching. Okay, so let's see here. So this is our agenda, right? We're going to try to make this fun and engaging and get through this. We're going to have about an hour of talks between us. Hopefully they'll be enlightening, exciting. You'll go, oh my gosh, I want to do that. And then we're going to have an Ask Me Anything in use cases. That's really from 7:15 on. Ask us anything, right? And this is going to be engaging. We've also got the Magic Leap 2 devices. The idea is about 8 o'clock that anybody that wants to stick around and get hands-on with the devices and ask that we can stay until about 9 o'clock. Sound good? We're all in it together, right? So first of all, talk about the VR/AR Association. What are we? We're basically an association that is really designed to accelerate folks' growth, networks, and connections, right? It's about education. It's about networking. I got involved with the VR/AR Association in 2017. I was the Chief Revenue Officer of a company in Orlando that had done training and simulation for many years, and this new thing called VR and AR was coming. And as a business leader, I was like, okay, what does this mean? How do I steer my company? The engineers are all telling me, John, you got to do this. We got to do this. And they're like, give us more money. We'll build more stuff. And I'm like, yeah, but I got to go get money to give you money. So I started going to conferences like this with the VR/AR Association, and I started meeting people that turns out that are the world's leader. They're the ones that understand really what's going on. So they could tell me, like, hey, John, this is worth time. This is kind of emerging. Don't waste your time on this. And then we didn't have a chapter in Orlando, so I raised my hand and said, hey, let's set up a chapter in Orlando. We're now the biggest chapter in the United States, in the world, right? We're the largest chapter in the world because we have a very, thank you. Now, we also have a chapter here in Miami. Is Taria here? I didn't see Taria yet. No. So we have a chapter here in Miami that started up a few months. Well, there was a chapter in Miami a few years ago, and during the pandemic, it didn't make it. And so we've restarted the chapter with the focus around Metaverse applications. Now, so the Central Florida chapter is really focused on development, simulation, and training. The Miami chapter is going to be a little bit more focused on immersive technology, fashion, Bitcoin, that kind of stuff. So between the two chapters, we want to kind of collaborate and put more events on that adapt to both communities. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Right? So anyway, anyone's invited to our events. If companies want to join and attend, we've got information about that. What's really cool is every year there's this thing called the VR/AR Global Conference, the Global Summit. It's now been rebranded the Immerse Global Summit. It used to be in a nice, lovely place called Vancouver, right? Vancouver is nice, but Miami's better, right? So the conference is going to be here in Miami at the Fontainebleau, 5 to 7. Now, 5 to 7 December. This is a big deal. And actually, we have our European event in Portugal, in Madeira Island, Portugal, another amazing place. I'm going to be there next week. That's for the European market. So go to the website, check it out. We're going to try to figure out how we can collaborate as a chapter and have some presence there and booths and stuff like that too. Okay? Peak activity. Rob. So our newest corporate member, Peak Activity, joined the association as a company, and Rob is their representative here. And really like to thank you guys for stepping up and joining. We got other announcements too, if I'm allowed to. Okay, we'll make some announcements later. So anyway, okay, that's the VR/AR portion. Okay, now I'm going to change hats, put my Unity hat on. How many of you heard of Unity before? Right? Okay, good.
Waste to say no.
I'm wondering if I have to. Okay, a couple of fun videos to get started rather than jumping into detail. Gaming technology will transform game experiences. Sports experiences. How many believe that? Right? Take a look at this.
Here for live sports. We're using the Unity engine to develop Metacast, a new platform that serves audiences with the freedom, choice, and interactivity they crave.
Let's try this.
For live sports. We're using the Unity engine to develop Metacast, a new platform that serves audiences with the freedom, choice, and interactivity they crave. Collaborating with UFC, we've tested Metacast using volumetric cameras to capture every data point for full controllability. Soon, any capture system will do. Just use the Unity's real-time 3D engine and Metacast to transform any octagon, any basketball court, any rugby pitch, any sport, anywhere. I built my career on passion for sport, on the emotions and understanding of sport, and in finding ways to bring this to life for different people. After my tenure at EA, I was asked to run Liverpool Football Club, which made this lifelong fan very happy. So where do you go from there? Creators, broadcasters, sponsors, coaches, fans, and more. We will all shape the future of sports together.
So pretty soon you'll be able to sit in your living room, put on a soccer game, and hit a button, drop into a 3D environment, and actually move around and see what the players are doing. Click on the players, get stats, do some merchandising, right? So it's coming, right? And this is the theme of this evening is kind of the metaverse, and then how Magic Leap 2 is going to fit into that. So that's one example. Let's talk about another one. How many of you have heard of Weta? Weta is Peter Jackson's studio that made these movies. Earlier this year, Unity acquired Weta. Weta Digital. That's the tool set that was built by Peter Jackson's company to create these amazing movies. Why would Unity buy the tool set? Well, because we believe the world is a better place with more creators. Our job is to democratize the technology so that anybody can create really cool content. So by owning these tool sets, we can now make them available to the public. How about that? Now it's going to take a little while for those tools to get out in the public market, but I've seen some of the stuff that they're doing with it. It's phenomenal. People used to say, oh, you know, the fidelity is not as good as other stuff. Wait till you see this stuff. How many seen this movie? All CGI.
Fizzlight allows us to capture and recreate real-world lighting more accurately than ever before. Combined with Manuka, our full-spectrum light simulation engine, we're able to achieve new levels of photographic accuracy with our digital characters and environments, while still being faithful to the intentions of the director and cinematographer on set. Sources are controlled using real-world units such as lumens output and Kelvin color temperature. Any practical light source that we have physical data for, such as a torch, can be used to light the scene just as a cinematographer would. Manuka models the light transport in the scene exactly as it occurs in the real world, and Fizzlight allows us to capture that scene exactly as a real camera does, giving our artists the best integration into live-action footage and the tools to create completely digital scenes that feel like real photography.
One day, you'll be able to have those tools in your hand too. Okay, for those of you who don't know Unity, obviously we're in the real-time, we call it real-time 3D. It's not a game engine, it's a real-time 3D platform. As the technology moves into other industries, it's less and less about a game engine and more about a platform that enables you to develop stuff. Okay, let's talk about the Metaverse. Who's heard about the Metaverse? Who believes it's not real? Raise your hand. Honestly, if you don't believe it's real, raise your hand.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, people in the back.
All right. Okay. And that's fine, because we're at this point where you just get overwhelmed by it, right? You got Mark Zuckerberg that says they're Meta, they own the Metaverse. You got so let's talk about that a little bit. One thing for sure, money is being spent. Everybody agree on that? Billions and billions of dollars are being spent on the Metaverse. So, if you talk to Meta, it's a universal virtual layer that everyone can experience on top of today's physical world. Now, notice that everybody has their own perspective of the Metaverse. Oh, the CEO of Dolby, the Metaverse can take many forms, but ultimately it's a audio-visual experience. Why would the guy from Dolby because he's looking at it from his perspective, right? Match group. It's a piano bar where people's digital selves are gathering around, but they're actually playing pianos at home and jamming with others. That's pretty cool, right? Match. And then, of course, Bill Gates has to have a view, right? Bill Gates' view it goes from 2D Zoom to 3D. Everyone's got a different view of the metaverse. So a few months ago at AWE, our CEO, John Riccatello, stood up on stage and said, I'm going to try to define from a Unity perspective what the metaverse is, okay? The metaverse is the next generation of internet that is always real time, mostly 3D, mostly interactive, mostly social, and mostly persistent. So he stood up on stage and said, this is our definition. The engineers absolutely hate this definition because they don't like mostly sometimes. They want definitive, right, engineers?
Oh, yeah.
Okay? Well, we're not there yet. I think that was the point. We're not there yet where the metaverse can be defined as one thing, right? But we do know a couple things. Always real time. What is real time? A movie is not real time. A movie streams to you. You sit there and you absorb it. A web page is not real time, right? Information is served up to you. You make a choice. A video game is real time. I move the stick left, it goes right. A flight simulator, that's real time. So today, roughly 2% of websites are real time. We expect by 10 years from now, most of your websites are going to be real time. Second of all, mostly 3D. Mostly 3D. Not everything is going to be 3D, but 3D gives you capabilities. And guys, 3D is not always just immersive goggles, okay? 3D is, 3 dimensions on your phone using augmented reality, things like that. So don't let 3D kind of be defined by one technology. Mostly interactive, right? That's self-explanatory. It's going to be interactive. Mostly social. What really defines metaverse applications is the fact that we're connecting to other people. It's not a singular, but it's not always social. Mostly social, right? And mostly persistent. What is persistence? When you play a video game and you shoot up the building and you get killed and your character respawns and it's a new building, that's not persistent. In the real world, you go and shoot up the building stays shot up until somebody comes and patches up the holes, right? So in the digital world, persistence means that that data, that state of data, stays the same way. It's permanent, unless something else alters it. You with me? So the metaverse, in the real world, right, outside of gaming and entertainment, when something happens, it stays that way, so it's mostly persistent. Okay? Really, the metaverse is just the next evolution of the internet. That's all it really is. If we boil it down, it's the 3D internet. Okay? Now, this is what a lot of people think the metaverse, right? Ready Player One. I'm going to put my glasses on, I'm going to go to town, and everything is going to be cool. That is the metaverse, but the metaverse is a whole lot more than that. So we really need to broaden the definition. And that's why, that first slide where everybody had their different perspective of the metaverse, it's because everyone's looking at it from their use case. Right? Same thing with the internet. Remember what was called the World Wide Web? Those of you that are around my age, right? Then it was, what was it, Mosaic, Firefox, right? Who would have thought that today the internet is pervasive in our lives? Everywhere we go, the internet is delivering information to us. Okay, so from a Unity perspective, once again, I'm giving you kind of our perspective as we try to be a market leader and define some things, is you got 3 different primary areas. You got destinations. First of all, you got digital destinations. These are environments that are purely digital. Fortnite, Roblox, right? You're going into an immersive digital environment, either through a headset, through a computer device, or something. It's all digital. Everybody with me on that? Okay. Second one, digital twins. My favorite term, because that's the business that we are in, the non-gaming side. This is really your industrial metaverse. This is the on-ramp where you're now creating visual digital replicas of real-world things. It can be shoes, it can be factories, it can be buildings. The fact is you're taking digital data and you're putting it to work against real-world assets. Does that make sense? It's a really simplified. We could have a whole lecture just on digital twins, right? The reality is digital twins have been around for many, many years, 20 years, but they've primarily been 2-dimensional data sets, right? Where engineers run analysis and they engineer the next car. Now we're unlocking that data, we're putting it in 3D environments, and we're connecting other data to it. So we're really able to create living, breathing, digital replicas of physical assets. This is exciting. Real-world augmentation. Real-world augmentation. This is where we're taking digital data and overlaying it in the real world. An example of this was NASA JPL worked with us on Unity to basically create the Mars rover, right? A lot of data was overlaid, right? Now, we're going to talk about today the Magic Leap 2. That's an example of overlaying data into real-world scenarios, right? So there's three kind of areas that we categorize. Now, ultimately, there's going to be killer apps that fuse a lot of stuff together. You know, this example is you're walking down the street, it's dinner time, your system, your phone already starts looking around the restaurants that fit your profile, makes your reservation, off you go. Those are services that are going to be delivered to us on many types of different devices. Ultimately, we're going to get to holograms, right? When that technology gets so good, you're either visualizing holograms through a device or there's projection systems. But the fact is you're interacting. Data is flowing over the internet in different formats. Okay? These are two books I highly recommend. If you're interested in the metaverse, read one or two of these books, both. Okay? Take a picture. Right? One thing that is in both of these books, 3D gaming technology will power the metaverse. That is undisputed. What is up for grabs is which of the technologies is going to be the technology, predominant technologies. And there's stuff that's coming that we're not even aware about yet, right? But yeah, good resources. Now, learn from Dilmer. You see that slide, Dilmer? So one of the things I also suggest if you want to learn, right? Dilmer's got a lot of great videos. I can understand them, right, when I watch them. So, you know, that says a lot, right? Great delivery of content.
I happen to have the same t-shirt. I have multiple, guys, just in case.
Okay, there's my contact details. If you want to take a picture of that, connect with me on LinkedIn. If you ever have questions, want to follow up, whatever, glad to help. Okay. Now, our first speaker. So I blew through that as quickly as I could. Our first speaker is Nicholas Sinoremas.
That's very
Is that good? All right. So, Nick, why don't you take it away?
Can you hear me? Okay, great. Thank you. Great introduction, actually. So my name is Nick Sinoremas. I wear a couple of hats for the University of Miami. I am the Vice Provost for Research Computing and Data at the University of Miami. And I am also the founding director of the Institute for Data Science and Computing. So I'll give you a little bit of, an overview of what we're doing at the University of Miami and what is the Institute for Data Science and Computing for the University of Miami. So I will start with the Institute. The Institute is a university-wide organization, which means that we're reporting to the provost of the university, and we are spanning all the schools and departments at the university. So our goal is to catalyze interdisciplinary approaches in the area of computing and data science, because everything is becoming, these days, as John was saying, all about the data. So what is our mission and our goal is actually to provide expertise and infrastructure together in order to solve problems that they require teams, problems that they require multiple experts to come together to solve problems. This is actually a pretty novel idea for universities, if you will, but it's very common in the industry world. But what we wanted actually to create an organization where we put all the expertise and all the experts around the university to start addressing real problems like climate change. But also, because we are a computing institute, we believe that the connecting tissue, or the glue, if you will, is computing and data. And I'm sure that many of you can appreciate that fact. So that's how we are viewing here at the University of Miami of what we're trying to do together. So we're putting together people from psychology, people from computer science, people from computer engineering, people from the medical school and interactive media to start understanding how we can affect our health, right? So that's the part that we're trying to do. And what we wanted to do this, it's not only for the research aspects to solve the problems, but how we can also permeate our next generation of problem solvers and the next generation of innovators, namely our students. So that's the part that we're trying to catalyze as part of the Institute for Data Science and Computing. So how we organized, I will give you a little bit of overall view, and I will bring it up a little bit of what we're discussing today, because John made a great introduction, but also there is not only one technology that is coming together. In order to make the metaverse work, there is a multiple of technologies that they have to come together to create the metaverse, whatever the metaverse you think it is. Right? And I ask you here, and after the very passionate introduction, what is the metaverse? And I would say everybody will give us a little bit of a different answer here, right? So whatever we're going to do. Anyway, so we are actually organized around themes of a great importance, like earth sciences, right? And climate change. So this is all the aspects that we do, and how data science and computing can actually understand this. So one of the first applications, by the way, that we did with Magic Leap 1 was about climate change and climate resilience. So you understand. So the other part is all about what we call the digital health. So our healthcare is moving away from the hospital to the clinic to our homes. And digital devices and IoT devices, and obviously Metaverse, will have a big role of how we manage our health. And the other part, and the other theme that we are organized around is what we call the smart environments. Smart environments, we live in a world where we have IoT devices everywhere, from the front door bell of your house to, this here probably we have dozens of sensors all around this building. Right, that they measure all sorts of different things. So this is the idea of the smart environment, smart cities, if you will, but not only smart cities, but environments. That's why we wanted to go there. And then there's a number of vertical technologies that we believe that it's important to create this kind of, if you will, problem-based approaches. So it's machine learning and AI. Everybody needs to be aware these days about machine learning and AI. No matter what you do, the metaverse is going to be full of machine learning and AI. So we need to generate the next generation of experts in machine learning and AI. That's one of the technologies that we think is very pervasive, and that it's going to influence everything that we are going to be doing from now on. It has already done, by the way, and it's going to get even more. Another part is that what we call it, and this is very much related to Magic Leap and so forth, is human-centered computing. And actually Kim Griffender is actually a program director of that program as well. And probably he's going to take my seat after I finish. But also we have some other aspects of what we call it is the social responsibility, data for good. This is very important, and don't forget this in the metaverse. Data for good. This is actually what we call it data, ethics, and society. What does it mean? How an AI interact? What does all of these aspects? How the metaverse is going to show, who we are, and what we want it to be. So that's very important. So we believe that this should be infused everything that we are doing. So with that, I will talk a little bit about the Institute for Data Science and Computing. So, and as you see, that we're trying to put all of this together and tell you a little bit about what we have been doing with Magic Leap and how we are committed as a university and as an institute, but also as a university into the mixed reality, extended reality, and virtual reality. Actually, we started our relationship with Magic Leap in 2018. So we had over 100 devices of Magic Leap 1 on campus in 2018. So we have a number of different events. We have engaged hundreds of students, dozens of faculty to create applications about extended reality. So the university, coming from the president down, the provost and all of us, we thought that this was the next part that we need to be involved. There, at that point, it wasn't the metaverse, it was the meta and so forth, right? So, but it was basically how these mixed realities are going to change the way that we deliver education, the way that we create new content, the way that we live our lives. And we wanted actually our students and our faculty to be engaged with that. So we started a large program of giving mini grants to students and faculty to create applications. As a result, with Magic Leap 1, we have created dozens of applications that they are bringing the digital and the physical world together, because that's the idea of the XR. And we are also, bringing this into the virtual environments, and I think that the Magic Leap 2 has got more advanced capabilities for the virtual reality as well, which is basically, in one case is that you bring in physical and digital world together, and that could be one of the definitions of the metaverse, or you'd be transported to a different universe, to a different world. And that would be your definition, how virtual reality can work with that. So as you see, as part of the university, we wanted to be on the forefront of this kind of technologies, and actually we have done a lot of things. We have engaged, as I said, we have already dozens of classes that we actually create new content, but also expose our faculty and our students to these new realities, how they can deliver better educational content. However, some of these applications, as you know, at the University of Miami, we have a very large healthcare system. So a lot of the applications are actually healthcare related, but not only. They're manufacturing related. They are historical preservation, and art historical, and archaeological applications, more of that space as well. So we have been doing this. We are very excited in our relationship with Magic Leap and now, with Unity, of how we can actually advance this and make it more pervasive. So we wanted also to create the next generation of developers, the next generation of creators, the next generation of people that they change the world. That's the part that we wanted to do at the University of Miami, and we have been trying to do. And we value a lot our relationship with Magic Leap, and we're looking forward actually to see the more things that we can do with Magic Leap 2. I just got a demonstration of Magic Leap 2 a little bit before we started this. It's an amazing experience, right? If you have compared with Magic Leap 1, it's basically an order of magnitude difference, I would say. And we're very excited actually to continue our collaboration, and we continue actually to push the envelope, because that's what universities are good at. We are pushing the envelope. We don't want to be Me Too, we don't want to do commodity things. We want to push the envelope and think what is the next thing that we need to be doing. I won't bother you with another yet definition of the metaverse. You can have your own definition of metaverse, whatever you think it is. Okay? So, however, we all are in what I would call it in these days, and think about this, our youngest generation are digital natives. Some of us are digital migrants. We didn't grow up with that, right? Our students are digital natives, and these are the ones that they are going to create and define the metaverse. Okay? So, thank you for having me.
Well said. Thank you. Okay, our next panelist is Rob Petrosino. Go ahead, Rob.
All right, can you guys hear me through this? Yeah? Fantastic. Oh, I can't sit down for too long, sorry. That's me. Has anyone before today ever heard of peak activity? Ever? Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it. We've chatted. Peak Activity is a 7-year-old company based out of Boynton Beach. We've been around. We went through...
Trademarks.
How about now? Fantastic. We've been around. So 7 years.
My mic's on.
It's a hot mic. 7 years through a pandemic, 250 people, and we've been doing a lot of what everyone's talked about so far. So my question is, does anyone know how a metaverse or an XR experience or an AR experience gets actually built when you're not Meta, Facebook, or a Fortune 100 plus company?
Using the Unity platform.
Correct. Using the Unity
Great
platform.
answer. That was brilliant.
You gotta give me 20 bucks. So yes, 100% using the Unity platform, right? Peak Activity is actually an early access partner of Unity, so we get to work on a bunch of that stuff. We're actually an early access partner of Magic as well. But what winds up happening is an organization wants to put their toe in the water and then jump into the deep end typically. So when they want to put that toe in the water, they have to work with an organization that knows how to go out and build those types of experiences, which is where Peak Activity comes in. So Peak Activity typically fills the gap between an organization that is completely unaware, unsure of what they need to do or what direction that they want to move into, to a direction, roadmap, timeline, strategy, infrastructure, creative support that actually will go out and execute. So how did Peak Activity get into this 7-year-old company? Started off in 2 buckets way back when. Modernization and optimization, okay? You typically call those your meat and veggies of being in an organization. So in the modernization bucket means if any of you have ever done IT or infrastructure work, there's an old legacy platform called an AS400. Okay, it was a server that sat in the basement. You left. Fantastic.
It's not old. We still use it.
I know you still use it. That's not great. We'll talk. I'll give you my card. So an AS400 is a legacy server system that you usually stick in the basement, and you have a bunch of different racks of them to run your website, or your PIM system, or your DAM. If you guys don't know what those are, that's fine. Those systems are not bad. But if you want to move and modernize them, you want to move into a cloud infrastructure system, potentially with some data lakes and information that you can gather so you can pull that real-time data and information onto various different portions so that you can have an AR experience where that real-time Yelp information is overlaid onto the world around you. But if you don't modernize that stack and then optimize it with various levels of APIs and microservices, etc., you'll never get to an AR experience. So if you don't eat your meat and potatoes, right, in your modernization and optimization buckets, you don't get to work with Rob Petrosino on dessert when it comes to innovation. So my role in the organization is to look up and out, work with organizations like Magic Leap, work with organizations like Unity, and bring experiences that companies didn't think were possible into the reality. My goal, always, is educate first, explain the variances between VR and AR, why VR is good in some places, why AR is good in some places, and then align that C-suite executive group to understand this is the long-term strategy, this is why you're doing what you're doing, this is where you're going to move to, and this is where you're going to go for ROI. The great part is, an organization that also does that could be 5,000 people large, like Boston Consulting Group or Deloitte. Peak Activity is not that big, which is great, because we don't just give you a 157-page documentation pitch, and then you take that, you read it, and never do anything with it. Peak will go in, consult, understand where you want to go, build out a proof of concept, build out a first version of an MVP, and then educate your internal team so that you can continue the development path. We're unique in that regard. We don't look at ourselves as, an agency that's just going to come in, give me 3 months of salaries, give me 3 months of time, and I'll turn you back a product. It's a truly integrated team model. So when you think of innovation in that regard, and we have 3 core buckets. We work on the machine learning side, both tabular and visual data. We work on the XR side, or mixed reality side, with both VR and AR projects. We work on innovation workshops and methodologies so that you can bring that out. But we have 2 customer types. One is corporate, and one is education. Well, those are pretty much as far apart as you can get. If you look at education, right, they're focused on moving the needle, creating something new, just like we heard. On the corporate side, it's about generating revenue, increasing efficiency, driving to an ROI, right? The reason we work with both is because Peak Activity consumes the product of universities. We hire the students that come out and are interested in this. So if we can enable those universities to understand the real world impact of what corporate customers are doing, everyone's benefiting. So that's really where we fit in this ecosystem of innovation. Really excited to chat, really excited to see some of the demos, or see you guys go through some of the demos that we've built. And if you think of it from a very circular experience, Peak Activity tries to sit in the middle of this. If you're interested in hardware that enables experiences and you need software to run on that, but you don't have the internal teams to develop that, it's where we fit in really well. Or you just need to know further what's going to be happening. You want us to look into the crystal ball and say, these are the things that we're seeing other organizations do, maybe you should look at this. I think that's my time, and I really appreciate it.
Speaker is Lisa. I got my microphone off. Can you hear me? Yeah. Lisa Watts, Vice President of Product Ecosystem at Magic Leap.
Hi everyone, thank you for having me. It's great to be back at this venue. When was the last time we were here, Kim? It was
6 months? February, right?
Yeah, so we I think that was the first time John tried to steal the Magic Leap too, if I recall.
I just got away with it. How many? Make sure you counted how many you got tonight.
They are for sale, John, and we are shipping them, actually, to developers. It's such a pleasure to be with you all here, and I think we've had great conversations so far. We were just talking about the digital and the physical world being one. This is at the core of everything that Magic Leap believes. And you just heard a lot about what the university has done with Magic Leap 1 and the history of the company. And I've been at Magic Leap for just over a year and a couple months. Prior to that, I was consulting for a couple years, but spent 25 years at Intel Corporation. Has anybody heard of Intel? No. Maybe? By saying I spent 25 years there, that's probably dating myself quite a bit, but us Gen Xers like to say we invented all of this internet, Metaverse stuff, but it's not ours to bring to life, it's yours. So when you think about the long history of computing, of client and server computing, the Metaverse is really an evolution of that. And I also like to say that it's like a great wine. It's not really what is the best wine, it's the one that you like. And that's also your definition of the Metaverse. Everyone as a human has a different experience in the world. And so that interaction that you have with your version of the digital world, whether you choose to interact with it in a very small way or in a very immersive way, the key to the future of digital technologies and the physical world is keeping the human at its center. So we have to think about those things all the time. So my role at Magic Leap is one that I'm becoming more and more immersed in, not to use that word, slightly, but really focusing on the technical enabling of the software and the solutions ecosystem all up. And what does that mean? One of the first things that Magic Leap did last year is to make a decision to pivot the platform to be an open platform. If you recall from Magic Leap 1, we were very much focused on protecting that user experience. And in protecting that user experience, that meant protecting it from the boot up screen to the application stores to everything about how it was presented to you, protecting the information and data and ID and all inside the Magic Leap environment. That, I think, is very much a model that you'll see some other big tech companies using. As we start to look out over time, though, and we start to think about what enterprises need and that their data needs, and you think about the fact that the Magic Leap headset is not just simply a display. I think a lot of people will think about, oh, Magic Leap, it's another AR headset, I get a heads-up display, I can see 3D content, great. It does that very, very well. In fact, right here in Plantation, Florida, I would argue is one of the most sophisticated optics manufacturing facilities in the world. They have spent 12 years with over 3,000 patents developing and doing something that other companies are spending billions of dollars a quarter just trying to get to. That would happen here in Florida, just down the street. I think it's pretty amazing. So we stand on the shoulders of giants as we bring Magic Leap 2 to the marketplace. And so from my passion, it's like, how do we unlock that value? Yes, the visuals have to be there. Yes, we need to get out of the way so that those visuals are not impeded. And you're going to experience that with our larger field of view. We've taken a vertical approach now. So if you're 6 feet from me, or you have a 6 feet avatar, 6 foot object, and I'm 6 feet away in that square, there's nothing that impedes you there. And we've given tools to really help that digital content really blend into the real world. And so as head of the team that's focused on technically enabling for those platforms, our job is to reduce the friction. So the company has taken an approach to go to an Android-based operating system. This is a huge deal. It's been a huge deal for the company itself to make that pivot and to re-architect the software from the ground up. In the front row here, we have one of the engineers from Magic Leap who has been working on that project night and day. So everyone should give a big round of applause and Mark. And right next to him is Christian, who spends every day, all day, making sure the developers know what to do with that great open platform. So that is our mission, to reduce friction, to be able to present the tools and information to developers for them to make the decisions, and also to be clear on what it's capable of. The device has over 18 cameras and sensors. It's got 4 microphones. It's got 2 speakers. What other AR pair of glasses out there in the marketplace has that payload? Tell me. I'd like to know. But those cameras, sensors, microphones, all of that payload is worth 0 unless people like you in this room start to think about what to do with them. One of the great things that we've brought to the platform for Magic Leap 2 is our dimming technology. Has anyone played with that yet? What do you think? It's pretty good, huh? Anybody know what the biggest problem is for AR when you're projecting content on, a display like that? What's the number 1 problem? Anybody try to use black? What happens? It turns transparent. Well, that kind of stinks. There's a lot of stuff that's black, right? So we've had to take a very innovative approach by adding a layer into the object stack. There's 13 layers in that object stack, believe it or not, right? One of those layers is now for the dimmer. And that dimmer is now controllable by how that's used is now in the control of the developers. Live cache, sitting right over here. Peak activity, both taking unique approaches to how they're going to leverage that dimmer within their applications. I love it because they've given control to the user to decide how much they want to dim the environment. So if I'm in a very bright environment and I need to dim the entire environment, they're giving them a controller to be able, to be able to do that. We also then provide that ability for you to have a segmented portion of that content. What's a big problem with content in general applying to display like this? It doesn't look solid in the real world. It looks translucent, right? So how do we confer that solidity to digital objects in the real world? Now with this dimmer technology, we can start to do that. We can have a digital chair next to a real chair. Look at this chair. This chair has a shadow. As a developer, would you instinctually put a shadow on it? You put a chair there. Great, you put the dimmer behind it. Now that looks more solid. Great. Now you can cast a shadow. You start taking in consideration the lighting in the environments, those things that really bring digital objects to life in the real world. What is our job at Magic Leap, though? Why do we partner with people like Unity? Unity is the engine that has been working with us the longest, And we have just released or opened up our developer portal. And you know, Unity had to be there for us to be able to do that with the latest version. So that now you have those packages that you need in Unity 2022 and the XR packages to actually go turn on those things in the Unity editor. You can also, of course, use native C, etc. Those of you who are Android users and know Android Studio well, I mean, you've got so many tools now in your tool belt to start to work with this platform. Also, the cloud side, it's open. You can attach your applications to the cloud of your choice. You don't connect it to Magic Leap's cloud. We also don't have an app store. Okay, now that causes some consternation sometimes, I think. But when you're deploying to enterprises, I would imagine, and I don't know, but a university like Miami might have their own set of applications that they would want students to be able to use. This gives them control of that. It gives them control and the option to do that. That doesn't mean we're not going to help, enable the app ecosystem and the distribution models all up, but we're not making you commit to one. So you have a choice. You want to go open. You want to get into a store that has a rev share model. You want to, build your own store. You want to do your own whatever. You now have a choice. And our job, my team's job, is to make sure you keep that choice and that we reduce the friction wherever we possibly can. And if you've heard of friction, I will tell you that the one thing that is the most interesting thing that we're facing is that our compute pack is running an AMD Zen 2 quad-core SoC x86 instruction set. What are most of the other Android, etc. devices running as far as instruction set out there right now? Much to Intel's chagrin. ARM, right? So anybody in computer science, right? What do you gotta do? There's some recompiling you might have to do, okay? Is it gonna take you very long? Probably not. A couple lines of code, you got this. But you gotta think about these things. Your targeted platforms, you wanna be cross-platform, you gotta think about the platforms that you're targeting. Our team, my team, is gonna make sure that you can continue to do that. There may be things, Unity plugins, that are not compiled correctly that you're relying on. We need to know, Unity needs to know. We are here to reduce friction, to make that easy for you, and to take your feedback. So if you go to developer.magicleap.com, open to the public, we do ask you to register before you start to contribute to the forums and ask questions or file bugs, etc. But this is where you can get the information that you need to start developing for the platform. So we hope that you'll engage with us there. Give us ideas for sample projects. We hope the university comes up with a whole bunch of sample projects, right, for you guys to work on. I know, Kim and Nick and I are talking about how do we start to then move those applications from Magic Leap 1 to Magic Leap 2 forward. Now, we are not able to, at this time, or ever time, I should say, provide forward or backwards compatibility. Why is that? Magic Leap 1 was very proprietary in its implementation. Magic Leap 2 is very open, okay? So I apologize in advance if that gives you some consternation and not being able to directly, do backwards and forwards compatibility between the two platforms. But I promise you it's going to be worth the effort, and it's not that difficult. Well, I mean, your mileage may vary, I should say. If you run into problems, we are here to help you, right? So we're here to help you. Christian's here to help. I should say Christian's here to help you.
She just delegated.
if you get too stuck, Rob's got you, right? But this is what we want. We want that engagement, right? We want that engagement, and our whole point is to enable you, give you access to the capabilities, give you access to the camera, the depth camera. You're going to be able to do lots with that. The fact that you're going to be able to sense the world around you. These are the things we want you to take. If you think about it more about the information you might get from a self-driving car, or from a robot, etc., and now you're conferring that power, that superpower, to a human, don't just think about the display. Think about what you understand about the world around you, and how are you going to take advantage of that. And that's what we're really here to unlock. All those use cases that make that possible, to make the digital content truly exist in the physical world in a way that helps humans and enables humans to do that next level of interaction. So come play with us, come interact with us. Like John said at the end, we'll try to get a few of you through the demo, at least to be able to put it on your head and take a selfie and see something great. But it's really you as the developer community that needs to help us bring this to life, and we really can't wait to start working with you. You can, actually, I think I have to do this part, which is you can buy it now. We will ship it to you. It's available. Only for, I think, another 2 weeks do we have our Developer Pro Edition, which you can get at the base price. So get that now, because it's going to save you a little bit of Starbucks money. And then all of our editions are going to be available. Our top end enterprise edition is going to have a cloud component that will eventually be able to grow from 2 football fields full of a space that you can localize into to more than 21 football fields. I mean, we don't know. Mark's not sure when we're going to stop. How big it's going to get. He's going to get in trouble. So better edit that part on the Reddit post. But we are really working together with the overall community. You will see today there was a little bit of a story from NVIDIA on what we're working with them in a big retail client. So go look at that as well. This is the future, guys. Right? How are we going to work together to bring solutions to life that connect the real world and the digital world together? Bring that information, get that into humans' hands, get that into developers' hands in the best way we can, and unlock a potential that none of us even really know what's going to happen, but we're going to be part of it. So thank you very much for having me.
Okay, so the next speaker doesn't know that I created the slide, so he's now nervously looking behind him to see, because he knows I'm a bit of a jokester, because us Army people are like that. So I'd like to introduce you to Colonel Retired Joseph Nolan. That picture up there at the top was him when he was in the Army, and the picture below was him after retiring. You notice the difference? Look at that. You lost 20 years, right? I actually knew Joe a little bit years ago when he was up in Orlando. He had a huge responsibility. He was a full colonel, 30 years of service in the Army, right? Not an easy job. And one thing that a lot of people don't appreciate about being military officers at that level, once you become a lieutenant colonel or colonel, you're not really doing stuff like, on the ground. You're thinking, you're strategizing, you're figuring out how do I make the next generation more capable than my generation? And one of the jobs that Joe had is his group was the group that determined what were the technologies they were going to put on soldiers in our next generation. And augmented reality, Joe was augmented reality cool before augmented reality was cool, right? Right? I mean, we're going back years where you could see the potential for putting augmented reality technology on the soldiers, not just to engage in battle, but to fix trucks, to fix tanks, to learn new skills, right? And so when he retired, he went to work for Magic Leap Horizons. I won't steal any more of his thunder, but I just want you to understand that, when someone served their country for so long, a lot of times they're like, what do I do next? What's the next big thing, right? And so Joe's been able to transition into this really, really cool company called Magic Leap Horizons and continue in serving our country by continuing to help our nation's defense. So Joe, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Thank you.
I'll pull your slides up here. I'm going to have to operate here, so let's see.
I'm going to jump to one slide like I did at thesis, and I'll wait for you.
No, I'm coming, man. I'm coming. Two old soldiers here trying to run technology. Look at that.
All right, so we're going to stop here. So this is a presentation. If you were at the thesis, which is one of the Orlando simulation events a couple of months ago, I want to talk a little bit about kind of where we're going. And thank you for the kind introduction. I didn't expect that at all. It was thank you for your kind reception. Everybody take your left foot. Everybody's got a left foot, hopefully. Yeah. Put your left foot up.
Wrong left foot. Other left foot. I called you out.
I'm an Army guy, but I had a chance to spend a lot of time hanging out with Navy guys, and not by choice. But but I will tell you this: whenever you get on a ship, you put your left foot forward. So each one of us just put our left foot forward because we're getting ready to do this. We're going into the metaverse, and the ride we're getting ready to take is on Magic Leap. It's going to make it really cool. And Lisa talked a little bit about that, but let me talk. I get passionate because everything that I've been wanting for years and years, we're finally there. You know, we start taking a look at what is the metaverse, and I look at it for two basic components that I need. I need to be able to see myself, like spatial computing. I need to be able to see where I'm at in the real world. I need to be able to see data, and I need to be able to have some type of a logic compute function. And the other piece is I need to be able to tap into data. One of my jobs in the Army was to close down data orphanages. And that's exactly how they talked about it in the Army. We have all this great data. I got all the data that I need in the world that I need for a tank. I'm like, that's great. Can I get it? No, it's in this database, and we shut it off 2 weeks ago, and it's this other database. Are you kidding me? So where's all this data? With the power that we have today, we're starting to pull these open data sources. We're really leveraging cloud, not just a buzzword, but really getting after it. And with the data sciences, we're able to bring some of these disparate pieces together. Between those two things, that spatial computing environment that Magic Leap provides, and actually getting after data, we're on the ride. And to be honest with you, what I'm excited about it is what's in your head right now, because there's so many different applications that we can do to solve problems. I served my country for 30 years. I'm very proud of that. When I got done, I had an opportunity to go be a boring guy in a suit and go tell war stories in a corner. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to continue to do something really cool. Like I'm a gamer. I'm a gamer geek of all types. I'm a tabletop role-playing game. Matter of fact, I do volunteer work helping veterans that run tabletop RPGs like Dungeons and Dragons and Fantasy Age, and I do that to raise money for veterans and anybody facing PTSD. And that's kind of in my DNA. I want to help. And when I joined Magic Leap, I saw an opportunity to do something really cool and just really kind of leverage this technology. So these are some of the things we've taken a look at. I talked about a little bit about first, what could you do with this technology? Now that I can do spatial computing and I can tie in unified data, and we have an experience that really starts to get after its ease of use, its portability, it's configurable. I have co-presence. We can see the same data. I can have somebody from Mars dial in, and they can see the same data. I was doing a demo today over in the student union, and there were some folks at Plantation, some very important people that were doing a demonstration, and I was dialed in. And the guy's like, "Where are you?" "I'm in the University of Miami." And he's like, "Are you an avatar?" I'm like, "No, I'm real. My name's Joe." Is the avatar's name Joe? No, I'm real. I'm right here, like I'm waving my hand. But we all saw the same content. So one of the first things we did is we're taking a look at a reference app that we put together. We call it Hyperion, and the idea is where I can see myself, I can see the environment, and I can see the challenges that are facing me. Now that I can pull in that data and I know where I'm at in the world, I can start to put together a operations center as an example to be able to see all this data, and I can kind of see this pulled together in one simple location. You guys heard Hurricane Katrina, right? There's a general that responded to that named Russ Honore. I worked for Russ Honore when he was Lieutenant Colonel. I've known him forever. He's about 10 feet tall, funny as a monkey, swears like a sailor. And I told him I was coming to work for this company. He's like, "Joe," and I was telling him a little bit about it. I said, "What are you doing?" I said, "Hey, sir, I'm trying to build this command and control app." He's like, this is what I needed. When I was responding, this is his words. When I was responding to Hurricane Katrina, New Orleans got hit very, very hard. It was nuked. And he had to be on, because of the response wasn't our best effort, okay? We fixed it. He had to physically be on the ground to get water distributed. He had to go over here to make sure that food got to where it needed to be. And he said every single time I would get a call from the National Command Authority, I'd have to drive all the way across town to go into my ops center with all the antennas and all the buildings and all the power. He's like, "Joe, I want to take your magic glasses." I told him, "Sir, it's Magic Leap." He said, "Magic glasses. I want to put on your magic glasses. I'm going to drive where I'm at, pull it out of the box, put on your magic glasses, and I want to be able to have everything that I would normally have at the operations center. I want to be able to collaborate with my people, give decisions, take that headset off, put it in the box because I don't want to break it, because he doesn't want to pay for it. And then I want to get back to work." That's the kind of stuff we can do. The second application we're taking a look at, again, just planting seeds with you guys. We now have the ability, for police and first responders. We live in a world right now sometimes that we kind of wish the conditions were different. How about we leave it at that? And sometimes we're asking, bad things happen, and we got to respond very, very quickly. So I was at a police show in DC, and one of the things that they're wrestling with is how do we train officers in the real world. They can put on VR headsets, but they wear it for about 20 minutes, no offense, and they start to get seasick, you get the vestibular mismatch, you're not really sure, and they take the headset off. And I said, with this technology, with these cameras that we have in the Magic Leap now, I can take a look at a building that you have, and I can scan it. I can just walk around and take a look. And I can put synthetic content in there so that I can train my first responders. I can, when my paramedics show up, they can make an initial triage analysis, they can see where things are. And if I don't like how they do, I can change it very, very quickly. But I'm using their location. If I have to send somebody in to take care of a problem, I can actually, the responding officers can feel the real wall, not a virtual wall that you're kind of feel. I can actually feel the real wall because it's your real building. You can scan this, and it's cheap, and it's easy, and it doesn't cost you a bunch of overhead to recreate these different types of physical training facilities. We can do that. So these are the two of the things that we're kind of working on right now. But I wanted to throw some other ideas out at you, because where I work in Horizons, we do defense and public sector. And public sector, I'm a dumb kid from Detroit, so anything the public sector means it's taxpayer funded. So let me give you some ideas. First, everybody knows NOAA. They're like right over here, right? They know the weather side. You know the fishery side? No. Okay, my wife worked for NOAA Fisheries. She was a commissioned officer. She drove research ships. NOAA actually manages the fisheries for our nation. Little known secret. And they have a fleet of 300 vessels that go over there and do the science of the seas. And what they do is they do surveys every year on the West Coast and on the East Coast, and they determine by how much plankton is in the water, how many fish are in the water, where the whales are migrating, all that. And that's how they determine, all that science goes into this big, huge algorithm, and that's how they determine the catches for national fisheries. And that's, the fishery guys get mad at NOAA, but that's how we're able to have a sustainable fishery marketplace for our nation. It's great. It's one of those things that we do well that we don't take credit for. Today, they do that on paper maps, looking at a 2D screen and an Excel spreadsheet. What if I could be able to see that? Actually see the last migration, the current migration, be able to use the sensors that are out there, bring that all together to be able to visualize that. We can have safer surveys, we can make better decisions, you can see the science of it. How many guys went to shop class in high school? All right. Did you know that California, just as an example, has closed 75% of the shop classes in the state? And that's just an example. The rest of the country is following suit. It's kind of sad. We guys know how to change oil. I was a nerd. I was in debate class and computer club and debate club. So Dad's like, "You're taking shop." So I learned how to change oil, and I was on debate and got picked on. Anyway, that's not important. What we can do now with the AR technology that we have is I don't need to have a high school to maintain 15 different shop garages with all these cars. I can use the technology to teach guys how to break apart an engine. This is what a 4-stroke engine looks like. This is what a V8 looks like. This is what a Tesla engine is going to look like. You can teach this stuff in a classroom. And then actually go out there and you can get your hands on the actual piece of equipment. But imagine you're transforming lives. You're giving skills to folks that not everybody's going to write computer science. But if you can use these skill sets, these technologies to start to really rebuild what's missing in our country, how exciting is that? That's cool. You can give somebody a skill set. Laboratories are the same thing. I was the chemistry kid that mixed the two stuffs in chemistry in late 8th grade and set the lab on fire, and they kicked me out of school and I got suspended for a week. So if I could do all these types of experiments now virtually with a virtual lab, you're still going to do the live stuff, but you can do complex experiments. You can do all that kind of stuff. You can start to do this now with the AR technology that we're talking about, and it's great because I'm working together. Kyle and I can see each other, and I can bring in experts from around the world to take a look at it. Some really cool things. Last couple things I'll leave you with. Urban planning. One of the customers that are talking to us, they're building the city of the future. It's incredible. It's one of the largest municipal projects on planet Earth that they're putting together. And they're moving so fast that they're bumping into each other. And they said, hey, can we use AR to figure out how to lay down water, power, telecommunications, all the other stuff, to figure out how we can optimize this stuff? And we're like, yeah. And you don't need to do it with, I'm not kidding you, with large sheets of paper printed out, and we're lining it up on a light table and flipping the light on from the other side to line it up. We have the technology now because we have this and we have this. The last thing I'll leave you with, this again, just ideas that I'm flicking out for you new developers to think about. My buddy, Mark, is a volunteer fire department up in Michigan. And up in Michigan, we have some, obviously, the automotive industry, but we also have a huge robotics industry to feed the automotive industry. When you have fires at an industrial plant, it is extremely dangerous because I have live gas lines, I've got live toxic chemicals going in, I have hazmat, and oftentimes, when you see these firefighters show up, if they're lucky, I'll have a PDF tablet with a blueprint on some type of a tablet that I'm looking at really quick, trying to figure out where the entry point is before I send my responding officers in. That's crazy. When today we have digital data that we're able to pull in. We can have a firefighter pull up and take a look at it, and imagine this, it's the same type of use case that we're talking about, like with General Andre. Three of the responding, have a captain and a battalion chief show up, put on the headset. Okay, now I'm looking at the actual building, true AR. I'm looking at the actual building. Okay, show me where the gas lines are. Show them in red. Okay, show me all the ones that are active in yellow. Okay, does everybody see that? Those yellow ones are active right now. Get those things shut off, and this is how we're going to go in, and then this is how we're going to go ahead and tackle this problem set. We can save lives, we can save property, the list goes on and on. So I like what one of the speakers talked about, data for good. I would say use AR for good. There's so many really cool, awesome applications that are bouncing around your head right now. Be creative. Use the tool sets that we're going to provide you. Get excited about this. And I'm not the last thing between you and getting your hands on the headset, so I'm going to shut up. Thank you for your time. Get excited about it and come take a look at this piece of equipment.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so we're going to now move into the Ask Me Anything portion of the evening. And let me just try to bring Dilber up here on the big screen. Hold on, Dilber, I don't know how to make this thing bigger. So we're gonna do demos after these question and answer. Stop sharing the screen. Thank you. All right. Okay. So a couple of concepts here that we talked about, right? Is the metaverse is coming. The next 10 years is going to be about creating content, right? It's going to be sort of like when Eisenhower came up with the highway program and we're going to spend 10 years building interstates. It's the same thing. And we need people to build content, to build infrastructure, and all of that. Dilmer, real quick, give a quick couple minutes about what you do, and you also reviewed the Magic Leap too. Any comments that you've got there before we jump into the questions? Hold on. We can't hear you.
His audio's off.
You're on mute.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Awesome. Yeah, so I'm Dilmer. I teach XR, and I did review the Magic Leap. I was one of the early adopters of the ML1, and until today, I love the device. Every time I see it, it's just so high quality, and there's just so much tech in it. The ML2, it's actually sitting, if you guys can see, it's like right behind me. When Magic Leap sent me the loaner, they sent it in a very interesting box. So I'm like, I gotta order a real one so that I can experience what the consumer is going to experience. Anyways, yeah, I tried the Magic Leap 2. Lisa mentioned it, the big move to the Android open source project. Really exciting, because you can pretty much take an APK and build it in just a couple of tweaks. And then you get, an Android application running on the ML2. So really excited about that. The device is just. I tweeted about how incredible the device looks like because it is a work of art. And I've been currently testing it outside just to see the dynamic dimmer feature was one of the big things for me, especially knowing, teaching VR. Going to AR and then testing these when I went to AWE. being able to change the global dimmer it was actually mind-blowing to me, and that's one of the things that I recommend people to try it out. The other thing that I wanted to mention before we go into questions is, if you already know the XR toolkit, the basically extended reality toolkit that Unity provides, it's really, really easy to transition into Magic Leap 2 development. So it was very funny because I got everything set up, everything running, and then here we go, XR toolkit is available. I can do rays, I can use grabbables, I can use the knowledge that I had previously with Magic Leap 2. So I think that it's really cool for newcomers, because even if you don't know how to code, you can still get into it just by dragging and dropping different prefabs and components into Unity. And then if you want to extend it, they give you that flexibility. And lastly, just, if you want to, for a lot of devices that you have today in XR, it's really hard to test because you have to deploy to the device every single time. So the iteration time, normally it's what kills productivity. And Magic Leap has, they just rename it, what used to be called Zero Iteration. They moved to App Simulator. And you can basically just hook your device via IP address and then, add some changes, some features, test it. So that was a really good experience to be able to see the results right away in Unity, in play mode, while I was wearing the device. So thank you very much, guys. If you guys have any questions, and I wanted to thank Magic Leap for all they're doing and everybody that is in the audience.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, Delmer. Okay, ask me anything. Let's go some questions. You have a question?
I actually have a challenge.
A challenge. Well, speak into the microphone there.
Less of a question. Tech is not my thing, and for the recording, Tarja, thank you for inviting me. I do adults with disabilities in workforce, and she invited me because she's seen my stuff done by CG1 Solutions locally, using AR for teaching adults with disabilities how to actually get industry level training, like the fixing of the cars and so forth. So my challenge is for Tech for Good. I want to see that be real in a very short period of time, because I know, even me, just watching that stuff, I know it can be real. So that's my challenge. I have my card. My guy will talk to your guys, and let's see if we can do some Tech for Good.
You see Rob quivering over there? How excited he just got. He's like, yeah, we want to do that too, right?
Yeah, I don't need a mic, I can project. Yeah, so 100%, completely agree with you. One of the initial use cases that we built for ML1 that we actually brought into ML2 was specific for HVAC installation training. So instead of asking every single, student to go and lay this out in blueprint models like we were talking about, it's quite literally like laying these out in digital models. So I completely agree with you. It's a fantastic use case. One of the things we've always talked about within Magic Leap or AR, XR as a solution is knowledge transfer. And how do you share, educate, and enable the next generation, or share that information that's from someone who's been in the industry for 30 years, and we have someone on the job for the first week. So I can completely agree. Let's connect, and I'm happy to help anyway.
And that could also be something that the University of Miami, as a project for students that want to look at, is doing something for, as project-based work. So Kim Grinfeder right there is the guy to talk to. Couldn't raise your hand. He's the chair of interactive studies. I always get the title wrong.
Tracking media.
He runs the XR initiative here at the University of Miami.
So in fact, we're
It's easier for me.
doing that. We're kicking off, so.
There you go.
Okay.
That's all
So
my guys.
remember, part of the VR AR Association is about making connections, right? So we just made some connections there. Other question? Come on, hands up. Over there.
Thank you guys so much for coming today. It's really interesting. I'm wondering, on a large scale, what will it take for VR AR to move more from enterprise to lifestyle and entertainment? And then just a question for Lisa, what will it look like on the Magic Leap scale?
Okay, is this working? Okay. I'm going to answer this more from a technology perspective in general. most consumer electronic technologies either go through a cycle of, it's a cost thing, right? So when you buy your mobile phone, those things are actually very expensive, but you don't really understand the cost of that because you pay it on a monthly basis, right? You probably get a plan or something along those lines. So the consumer's expectations relative to how much things actually cost from a technology perspective are fairly skewed. Okay, so we have the psychological aspect of cost. In the Magic Leap case, when you have over 18 cameras and sensors, so many microphones and speakers, what we're facing is actually a science problem. So when you think about, my career at Intel, one of the main things that you all in the computer science department probably learn about is Moore's Law. Now, everyone's like, oh, Moore's Law is dead. We were on this every 2-year treadmill for a very long time. Well, Moore's Law is not actually dead. Moore's Law is actually more of a financial model than it was a technology model, than it is a technology model, right? It talks about the speed of innovation in the evolution of physics, and how do you make transistors smaller and smaller and smaller and more powerful, right? Because if you make them smaller, you're driving the cost down, but as the cost comes down, you also want the capability to go up. So as you start thinking about these things, this tension in the system relative to when things are going to be small enough and cheap enough to be as powerful as they need to be, it's going to take a minute. It's going to take everybody in this room that's in computer science, in electrical engineering, in physics, in chemistry, to continue to push the envelope. Or what you do is you start throwing features off the platform. You're like, well, I don't want this, I can't afford that, I want it to be smaller, I need it to be cheaper. I'm gonna start throwing capabilities off the platform. And then what are you sacrificing, right, in that? So that's where you've got to think about this a lot of people say, well, why don't you just connect it to a mobile phone? I already have a mobile phone in my pocket. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. But the compute is not there yet. To compute all of that data and information, it's a lot of advanced technologies that need to be, computed. You say, well, you just put it all in the cloud. 5G is coming, it's gonna solve everything. Well, it's not, actually. Why? Because you're like, I got 5G, I can make bigger and bigger data, I can push more and more stuff. So you're always gonna be filling up the pipe. It's never gonna be enough, ever. So it's really a combination of thinking, trying, experimenting, pushing the envelopes. When I first started, about 15 years ago, I would say, oh my gosh, transistors are now 3 atoms thick. They're so small. Now they're like subatomic. I don't even know, I'm like out of it. I don't even know anymore, like how small they are, right? This is why you are here. This is why you're at this university. This is why you do what you do, is to push the envelope. And for it to be something that's ubiquitous, and for every consumer, there's lots of things that are already ubiquitous for every consumer. But if you want to take something like what Magic Leap has done, and what so many of the other companies are trying to push for, why is it not ubiquitous right now? Because it's hard. It's hard. Magic Leap has done 12 years of hard work to get to where it's at right now. And it's gonna take, I'm not sure how much longer, for something to be, cheap and, that does everything that it does. I don't know when. But that's where collaborating with all of you and all the science and, the whole technology industry is gonna bring all that to life.
So, and don't you think though that scale, as more and more enterprises adopt it, it drives then over volume, drives costs down to where it could get to a point where it makes sense?
To a certain point.
To a certain
Yeah, I would say to a certain point, but again, that nothing is going to beat science. There's still going to be a science problem at the end of the day. And why enterprises are a great place for us to start, because we're gonna learn a lot there, right? And they are always pushing the envelope. And really, if you think about it, it's way less expensive than it probably could or should be at this point. So we've made tremendous strides. But I think it's about, making sure that we can continue to push the envelope and do it in a place where we can exercise all of those things. And here, inside of businesses, are going to push the envelope and really make us all better as an industry, not just Magic Leap.
Next question. Raise a hand. Oh, I got a microphone here. Hunter, you grab one, I'll grab one right here.
Hi, Lisa. I have a quick question to ask you. What will be the base price for Magic Leap 2? Can you reveal that information?
I don't have a microphone, so.
$24.99?
I think John said he's just buying you all one. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
Congrats.
Yeah, open mouth, insert foot.
So it's on our website. It was published in July, so you can go out there and take a look at that. So our enterprise unit, which turns on all of the big cloud, etc., is available for $4,999. It gives you your first 2 years of your subscription for free, and then you can pay ongoing if that cloud and all of the extra capabilities we're releasing for enterprises work for you. You can buy that out if you'd like. We actually have a medical grade product as well that we haven't released the price on. It is for specific industries, and that is, very much targeted for very, very specific use cases. Then our base edition is $32.99. That one is for local, single local user, local maps, much smaller content, not really going out to the cloud and doing those big shared experiences. The Enterprise Edition is also available in a Developer Pro Edition, as we call it, and that gives you, we discounted that to $4,099, and that's to give enterprise developers access to all of the enterprise features, so that they're going to be building all those big cloud applications. You can develop on any of the platforms that you would like, but we wanted to make sure that people that were building big enterprise applications, wanting to be going to big connected cloud, digital twin solutions, could be able to do that with as little friction as possible. So that's the price points we go. So we start from $32.99 and we go up from there depending on what flavor makes sense for what you're trying to do.
Next question.
Looking at the, innovative STEM schools that are coming around, what age range are you opening up the development to? Because there are a lot of schools that are working with junior high age kids that are developing amazing technology, especially in the space world. So is this something you guys are opening up your development to a lower age range, or is there a set age range?
I mean, from a Magic Leap perspective, is that the question?
Correct. That would be more for you guys, I guess.
I would say that from a Magic Leap perspective, we're partnering with other companies like Peak Activity in particular to do those programs for us. We're not engaging, directly with those community. We are in the Broward County, South Florida area. We've had very long-term relationships, University of Miami, etc. But as far as saying, what age group, I would say that there's complications relative to the age groups, relative to regulatory and those sorts of things. So I don't know that I'm qualified to.
I can answer from the Unity perspective.
There you go.
So how many of you have seen these game design programs in middle schools and high schools? Right? Zulama, I think was when I used to work at Carnegie Mellon. Zulama was a startup. They got acquired by Discovery Channel, I think. But anyway, they were starting in elementary school, and they were building curriculum that scaffold to teach skills. They're not going to throw a third grader in a full Unity. They're going to use different. They're going to start them off on Scratch or some of that other stuff, and then move them up, right? But point is, it's not about teaching the students just the coding. It's the computational thinking behind it, right? It's unlocking their creativity and giving them tool sets where they don't have to try to learn 3 years of fundamentals. They can get to work on building stuff and then learn as they go. So I think the answer is there's different curriculum at different age levels. But when you start getting into enterprise development, that's really, we've got certification programs online. Unity.learn.com is a great one to go to. It's free. You can go there and start taking classes. You can download Unity and do stuff. Does that help answer a little bit?
And I guess I was reacting to, you know, there is sensitivity to how young children are as wearing head-worn compute devices.
Yes.
Right? So that was where I'm hedging on my answer there, because there are regulations, there are guidelines that different states and countries have relative to the physical, you know, what we would recommend as a company, you know, it has to comply to local regulations relative to that. But to John's point, the sooner the kids can be understanding, you know, coding, the sooner that they can understand 3D spatial, right? 3D spatial is like, I was just saying I'm terrible at 2D gaming, but I'm great at, you know, VR gaming, because, you know, that's spatial that I understand. It's that XYZ spatial piece of it that I think should happen ASAP. I mean, as soon as the kid, you know, my daughter or son is interested in that, I mean, I want them exposed to that. We need that as a feeder pipeline.
Yeah, the only thing that I'll just add on point-wise that also supports Lisa and supports Unity is there's a whole complex methodology and approach when it comes to like user experience and interface design when it comes to XR or AR experiences. That is quite literally being developed now at the collegiate level that we want to see pushed down to, you know, the lower grades to start thinking like that, to the point of myself and some UX designers and developers actually went through an MIT sculpture class, because that was the best qualitative way for us to start imagining things in 3 dimensions, and a way of kind of impacting that kind of development life cycle for those experiences. So for what it's worth, it's currently being worked on.
Other questions? Right here? You got a question over there? Go ahead, take that one, and then this gentleman here, okay?
This question is for Lisa, right?
Can you speak into the microphone?
Yeah, you mentioned the cloud services that Magic Leap is going to have. Are there going to be any on-premise cloud services that, I think you did mention that there are going to be the ability to connect to on-premise cloud solutions. Is that part of the enterprise package, or?
Yeah, the enterprise device is what we call AR Cloud Ready, and then there will be server packages and components that will be available to install on your cloud infrastructure. Magic Leap is not going to be hosting the cloud service or anything like that, but you will have the ability to get those, you know, cloud, components from Magic Leap to deploy in support of your applications and services.
And that's part of the monthly subscription that you should be participating in.
You can deploy those server-side components however you would like. However, the device needs to be AR Cloud ready. So it would be the enterprise device with the subscription itself is a two-year subscription. You just kind of come to the party and you can just renew that yearly from there. Yeah, we're not offering, there will be companies that we know, we're not selling directly, we're only selling through partners. So there may be companies out there that will be doing hardware or devices or service types of offerings. It'll be totally up to them on how they offer those things. Many options I hope will be available.
Thank you. Okay, this is going to be the last question, reason we're running out of time, and we want you guys to be able to get your hands on the Magic Leap too. So what we'll do is we'll take this last question. Then, what's the instructions here? We want everyone to go to these sides.
Yeah, so if you guys want to just start turning them on since they're charging, and then we'll line people up and try to get as many of you to
try to get as many as you can. Get your hands on them, take a look at them. They're absolutely brilliant. Question, sir.
So before I say anything, I'm gonna excuse myself for my ignorance. This is my first time hearing about the Magic Leap 2. What's the main difference, other than the payload, between like the Magic Leap 2 and the Oculus? Because I know we were talking about, for example, like virtual labs. My dad's a doctor and he does a lot of virtual labs or surgeries through the Oculus 2, and I kind of jumped in on him, and it's pretty cool and integrated. But again, what's the biggest difference other than, I guess, the payload? Is there another advantage for the Magic Leap 2?
Well, it's the difference between virtual reality, where you're completely occluded from the real world environment, right? So you can be transported to anywhere, right? So you're completely inside of a simulated environment. from an augmented reality perspective, which is what Magic Leap is, you're actually taking those digital elements and projecting them in holographically into the real world. So you're, I will always see all of you. If I were to put in a VR headset, an Oculus headset, you all would go away and I would be transported elsewhere. It's a spectrum of experience. There will be, to me, I don't presume to say that one is better than the other. It's a matter of what you need to get done. Which sort of, virtual technology makes the most sense to you. But that's the key difference. Augmented reality is digital content that exists in the real world that you interact with, and the device should actually understand elements of the world that you're in. It should understand how to help you put things on a chair, on a real chair, it should know where a wall is, where things are in the real world. In an augmented reality space, you don't need that sort of information because you've completely replicated it in a digital world. So that's the key difference between virtual reality and augmented reality. The Magic Leap device is an augmented reality device.
Okay, last thing. Dilmer, can you hear me? On one of your posts,
yes, I can hear you.
In one of your posts, and then we'll close with this, you said something that I thought was really cool. You gave some advice. You said, my advice to anyone that wants to get involved in this industry is to what?
I always say it, and I would say just to get started in XR, whatever you can do. I think this is like the mobile era when the iPhone came out, and the people that were early on were the ones that did really well. So extended reality, it's that and more, because we're going to be able to extend our reality. And I think if you're getting now, you're going to be able to find a job anywhere. You're going to be able to build things that don't exist today. You're going to be able to create what we don't have available today. They call it the Metaverse. I like to call it extended reality. 4 years ago, people didn't know what it was. And now everybody knows what it is. And so imagine that 4 years from today. So if you have the opportunity to study, I would recommend, pick augmented reality, keep it simple, do something like AR Kit, AR Core, then, obviously go into Magic Leap, because once you put those glasses on and you do the global segmentation and the global dimmer and the segmented dimmer, it's going to change the way that you see technology in the future. So my takeaway is get into XR today and then message me 2 years from today. And then you'll see that you'll be in a really great spot. So thank you very much, guys.
Thank you. And go to Learn XR. Thank you very much. Okay, that's it. Thank you all very much. Let's go get our hands on some equipment.